What's up, guys? My name is Charlie. This is my podcast, Dead Name. And I'm just gonna get straight into it. Today's episode is about the concept of the male loneliness epidemic and its coincidence with the nonchalance movement that I've been seeing. I don't even know if it's appropriate to call it a movement, but like the popularization of being nonchalant and like things like looksmaxxing and etc. Um, I have opinions about it and I have nowhere to put them. And I was like, why don't I just make a podcast episode about it? So here I am. But essentially, like, I kind of want to go over like a few things. Like, yes, the male loneliness epidemic. I want to go over the like joke that being nonchalant low key is, and the way that men have kind of like bastardized women's desire and turned it into this really like honestly cringe ass fucking um basically bastardizing women's desires and then making it into a way of being and then trying to sell that back to women and being like, look, this is what you want. This is all you bitches want. Do you know what I mean? um but yeah, we'll just get straight into it. I've been reading some articles, and I took one article that I saw from the American Psychological Association. And while this article was targeted towards like division within society, specifically, I think like political division, I still think that the key point that they made at the beginning about loneliness in the USA is important and still relevant to my point. But it found in a study of more than 3,000 adults that nearly 7 in 10 said that they needed more emotional support in the past year than they had received. And that increased from 65% in 2024. And this is kind of just to elaborate on my point, um, or introduce my point that it's not just men that are lonely. It is just adults in general. People in the US are so fucking lonely these days, myself included. Like I literally my first video on here is about how lonely I am in my 20s. Um and I've talked about my disdain for social media, and I think part of it is because it it like yes, it has created this environment for people to connect in ways that they've never have before, and like for people to find community in unlikely situations, but at the same time it has made people so lonely. It has made it's like as much as it's connected people, I think it's also created more division, um because of this exposure to um everybody constantly trying to sell you something, and like everybody putting on personas online. Like people are lonely because they are looking at everybody else's best version of themselves constantly and being like, why isn't my life like that? And I think that topic is really interesting, and I kind of want to delve into it a little bit today. That's my point. Men and women are lonely, and also, of course, non-binary and people outside the gender norms are also fucking lonely, and that's its own thing. Um, but today I'm gonna be talking pretty, I guess, like non-inclusively, and I'm just going to be mentioning men and women. My point is specifically about the dynamic between men and women. That's really it. So, anyways, that is to say that men and women are lonely, and it's not just men. I've been seeing this hashtag or this phrase being thrown around a lot about the male loneliness epidemic, and I'm like, what epidemic? You know, like what epidemic are we talking about? People in general are lonely. It's not just men. And I feel like I understand where it's coming from. I really do. I want to like preface anything that I say after this with the fact that I understand and I empathize with men who are suffering from loneliness. I really empathize with you because like I'm in the same boat, right? And I know that men do tend to experience loneliness in a different way than I do because there are different societal expectations for the way that men should present and what exactly makes you a man. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that I was born female. I acknowledge that like men experience loneliness very differently from me, because of the things that are expected of them and what it means to be a man. Everybody knows what the gender norm is and what men are expected to be and who they're expected to become. And yes, everybody's definition of that is very different, but I feel like the agreed upon like a blanket example of what a man should be, everybody knows it's not exactly very forgiving. Um, and the tools that it gives you as a child, which you then take into adulthood, are not built to create lasting friendships or deep interpersonal relationships. And I say all that to say that I understand, but I don't think that it's an epidemic. I think loneliness in general is an epidemic. I don't think it's male centered. And that is kind of one of the things that pisses me off about it is that men in the atmosphere of mental health, while they feel as if they are not centered, I feel like it gets weaponized a lot. This male loneliness epidemic phrase gets weaponized so much. And I feel like men who are lonely kind of like take that and they run with it and they're like, yeah, yeah, you're right. I am fucking lonely. I'm fucking lonely as shit. I'm so fucking lonely and all women ever talk about is their problems, and it's always celebrate women, but it's never, what about the men? What about the men who are lonely? What about the men who are victims? I've made a post on my art account and it was about my trauma, and a man came into my comments and was like, wow, I just hope you acknowledge your privilege and what it must be, to be accepted by everybody and loved so much whenever you share your trauma. But just know that when men do it, they are villainized and they are made fun of, and it's not fair. And you should acknowledge your privilege. And I was like, hold on, pause, actually, fucking pause, cut the cameras, because why are you as another victim coming into my fucking comments getting mad at me because people are celebrating me for talking about what I've been through? But actually unpack that. Look within. Because like if you made a post and people came to you and I'd gone through a lifestyle where people were not, when he came out about his trauma, people apparently were not very accepting and they did not embrace him with open arms, and that has led him to be very bitter. um but like if I was in the same position as him, I would not be coming into other victims comment sections and being like, you should acknowledge your privilege. Sorry, it's not a privilege to get raped. It's not a privilege to be traumatized. It's not a privilege. Being accepted, being loved, being embraced when I come out about that kind of trauma is not a privilege. That is what I deserve. That is the exact response that everybody should get, and he should have gotten that. Him being a little bitch and coming into my comment sections does not make me believe he should have gotten that any less. But the fact that he thought that he could come in and steal my thunder and rain on my fucking parade and be like, but what about men? What about men? Advocates for men's mental health do this so much where they think that uplifting women automatically means that people are downplaying the suffering of men. And while I do acknowledge that there are people out there, because there's people for every fucking demographic you can think of, there are people out there who are going to sit there and be like, well, actually, you're right. Men's problems don't matter. I think everybody's problems matter. I think people who are enduring trauma and who are enduring suffering, they deserve to have resources. They deserve to be spoken about and their stories told. I don't think their stories matter any less because of whatever gender or background they come from. But that is to say that there is so much division between men and women when it comes to mental health. And men, sorry, are constantly victimizing themselves, constantly at the expense of women. And they're playing it in this way of like acting as if women don't care about their problems. I'm sorry, but men, for the large majority of these women, have been the predators that caused their trauma. Men have been the assailants. Men have been the reason why these women have this trauma in the first place. And men have been traumatizing and assaulting and doing ungodly things to women for centuries. So I'm sorry. And men did not give women resources when they needed them because of this trauma. They didn't. So I'm sorry if women have, over the years, over the centuries, formed this kind of protective circle around each other to uplift each other. Like, yeah, women are going to create their own safe space, and they're going to talk about women's problems in a women's community, because why wouldn't they? Yes, maybe in the modern age it's very different, but for centuries, women did not have that. They did not have access to that. They had to create it. I feel like we have just, like, men constantly are just victimizing themselves and acting as if women don't care about their problems because women are talking about women's problems. I know it doesn't make any sense, but that's what's been happening. And I think it all starts in childhood. I genuinely think it all starts in childhood, and I don't think that's like a crazy take to have. But like, we don't give young boys the tools to have these communities that they are actively seeking out in the way that they want these communities to be. Um like it all starts with this whole thing about like boys don't cry, and this archetype of what a man should be, and this definition of being a man, and everybody's everybody's definition is different but similar in some kind of way. And the societal definition of a man, obviously everybody knows it. It's this like stoic, strong, unfeeling yet unfazed kind of man who kind of just pulls himself up by his bootstraps, and he kind of just like does the damn thing all the time, and he never complains about it, and he sucks it up. And if he's going through a hard time, he just pulls himself through that shit, and he gets over it because he's got people to provide for, right? That's kind of, and men are seen as these providers and these like pillars of society, that are supposed to imbue like strength and chivalry and like all that. I chivalry has died. I low-key think it's died, but um at one point chivalry was also part of the definition, right? But um I think that like we don't give boys the tools to build their own communities that they're seeking out. And when they see people, women, having this thing that they want, they get so upset, and they feel so left out and just shunned. And I'm sorry, but like, because another man did something terrible to a woman, and she is talking about her pain and her trauma and what she's been through, you suddenly feel like you deserve the opportunity to come in and be like, well, like, uh, women, women are also bad. Women are also bad, and also men go through stuff too. And whenever a woman's doing it, nobody's talking about that. If you meet anybody with a sane fucking mind, who actually has like media literacy and who gives a shit and is maybe kind of even a little bit intelligent, they will tell you that they care. They will tell you that your problems are valid, and that what you experienced was valid, and how you have processed that trauma is valid. I feel like anybody who tells you otherwise is definitely brain dead in some kind of way. But it's just like, m- men are constantly put on this pedestal of having to be, when they endure hardship, they must be visibly unaffected by it. And their counterpart is this archetype of a woman who is overly emotional, overly affected by the things that go on, and he must be her caretaker. And I could go on and on and on about what the fuck I think about that, but I won't. I'm just tossing it in here to kind of help a point that I'm trying to make. But this is just not how people actually work. I, like, these archetypes that I'm describing are not how people actually work. Everybody is so different. You could look exactly like somebody. You could have, and the point can be proven with twins. They look the exact same. They can be complete opposites. Um, but everybody can feel emotion. Everybody is capable of vulnerability, but it is something that you either have to be taught or you have to learn through self correction. And I feel that men, as a majority, have not been taught how to be vulnerable. Like, they just haven't. Men have not been taught how to be vulnerable. They have been taught how to be strong, but strength in their definition that they've been taught is through detachment. Through detachment from your body, from your emotions, from your mind, even sometimes. And you become more of a walking husk of a human who is constantly performing an act of masculinity rather than somebody who is embodying your definition of masculinity. The line becomes so thin that the crossover between what your definition of masculinity is and what society's definition of masculinity is oftentimes gets muddied so deep you cannot remember what you used to think being a man was, because it's become riddled with what society has taught you what being a man is. Um, and I feel like that is where a lot of like male shame comes from in terms of like just being themselves, you know? Like, so many men have so many mental like catastrophes over just like painting their nails, you know? Like, small acts like that that can be seen as too effeminate or too gay or too anything, you know? Like, I feel like men have been taught that they can't be too much of anything besides just being a man. You can be too much man and that's okay. You know, your bros will just be like, ah, bro, like, that, whatever. You're just like that dog. You got that dog in you, bruh. And, but like anything else, if you're too much of anything else, if you're too emotional, if you're too quiet, if you're too shy, if you're too anything, like, that's seen as being effeminate and being a woman. It's like anything that is not within the confines of what society defines as a man automatically means that it belongs to womanhood. And I'm sorry, but as somebody who was born female, womanhood is so much more than just being the opposite of a man. And I'm non-binary, so like my definition of womanhood and what I think womanhood is very different from what a cis woman probably thinks. But to me, these gender roles that we throw around and that we constantly are like trying to play with and experiment with, and even being non-binary, is like you're still playing with the idea of womanhood and manhood. And it's just like these things are so ingrained into our society, it is so hard to break away from them. And I still haven't figured out how to do that fully, but like I am trying. I feel like more than we should be prioritizing what manhood or what womanhood is, it's personhood. Who are you? Who are you inside? And I don't think men are taught to look inside and find that version of themselves because they are constantly seeking approval from other men and sometimes women, but it's mostly men. Like, let's be real. There's like some homoerotic stuff going on there. Um, where it's like the approval of other men starts to subvert the approval of women, which is what they say they want, but in reality, it is actually just the approval of other men to congratulate them on getting the approval of a woman. Otherwise, why would you go brag about bagging a hoe to your bros? Why would you call getting a partner, a woman, to like you, bagging a hoe to make your bro laugh, to make a man laugh? I hope that makes sense. I'm not going to elaborate on it further. But that does bring me to my next point, um, which I mentioned in the beginning, but I'm gonna tie it all back in together now, is the popularization of nonchalance and the culture of looksmaxxing and all of those other little incel type shit things that have been going on. Um, I feel like young men and teens, ugh, excuse me, are being shown this new desirable way of being that in reality is just a repackaged version of what society deems a man should be. You are not subverting expectations. You are not delving out of the norm. You are being just a good little guppy who's doing the exact same thing other men have been performing and doing for years. You are not an exception. The way you do it is not different. You are doing exactly what society has been brain rotting you into thinking that you have to do. Being nonchalant is to act like you don't care. This level of detachment, which in comparison is the exact same thing as showing that you visibly have no emotions, which is what classic men kind of view as manhood is this detachment style, this way of moving through the world that is neither here nor there, that it belongs to really no one except yourself, right? And to lead the emotional power exchange. When you are nonchalant, you are the one who is portioning out how much emotion, how much of yourself you are giving out, right? To people who you deem worthy. And I would say that this point is not necessarily toxic, but in the way that it's been like popularized and like put out into the world, I think it's toxic. I think yes, they should be vetting who they let into their lives, but I don't think you should be keeping tallies and giving crumbs out whenever you feel like it to the people that you're supposed to be caring about. That is not what vetting people into your life means. Like there's a balance and a harmony, and yes, you should have checks and balances for like the types of people that you let around you, because birds of a feather flock together. Like obviously, like you're going to become in some kind of way enmeshed with the people that you let into your life. You can't not avoid that. um and so that part of it, the emotional power exchange, is in its own way just another example of vain displays of strength and being the one who leads that classical men kind of view as their definition, right? That's one of the tallies that they like to check off whenever they're looking at if you're man enough. Are you a leader? Are you I'm the alpha, I'm the leader. Like, it's that type of bullshit. It's literally like, are you a leader? Are you the one in charge? Are you taking control? Like, that aspect of manhood, it's just being repackaged into this. And they don't ever mention this part really when they're describing what nonchalance is, but it's basically what it is. Because the thing about being nonchalant is that nonchalant people do not get with other nonchalant people, because then it's no fun. Then you just both bitches sitting there being like, I don't care. I don't care. You're just both sitting there being that way. It's not fun anymore. Nonchalant people always get with what I would call a chalant person. Bitches who care too much. Like they're always getting with those types of people, because then you get to be the one in control. Then you get to be the one who is like, oh, I'll give you a crumb of myself today. Oh, I'll give you a little laugh. Oh, I'll give you a little bit of affection. That'll really reel you in, but I'll never give you enough. I'll never give you more than what I deem appropriate. And then that leads me on to my next point, which is you must carry yourself in a way that exudes confidence through withholding. which is a little bit of my other point that I made. It's through withholding that you show people inadvertently that you have nothing to lose. Does that make sense? And that is just another example of what classical men tally off as blunting emotions and feelings for the sake of image. Classical men use their withholding, their detachment style, their detachment from life and all of its worldly depressive things, right? As as a way of upholding their image of manhood. To show emotion and vulnerability is to be a weak man, and to be a weak man is to not be a man at all in their eyes. There's always you're not man enough. And the thing is that when people, and especially older men, say you're not man enough, they are not pointing at you and saying that you have a little bit of manhood and you could earn it back. What they are saying is that you are not a man. And quietly, they are saying you are a woman. And men from a very young age are taught that being anything other than a man is not okay. If you are born male, you cannot be anything other than a man. But they're also taught that if you're a man and you're a woman, you're dog water. Not you're not societally deemed acceptable. You are defunct. So, like men are taught multiple things at once that ultimately lead up to the conclusion that to not be a man is to be nothing at all. And to be nothing at all is to be a woman. Like it all ties together. I sound crazy like I'm pointing at fucking like my fucking whiteboard with like red string on it. I know I do, but like y'all have to see the vision. And anyways, that is to say that in this context, and I've explained nonchalance, I've explained the loneliness epidemic, at least my stance on it. That leads me into looksmaxxing content. And I think that looksmaxxing content is exactly what I said about nonchalance. It's just a repackaged, rebranded version of classic masculinity that men think they are doing something revolutionary, and in reality, they are just performing the exact same thing that people have been doing for a millennia. And like men in this context and looksmaxxing content, right, are searching for desirability through vanity and physical appearance without doing any of the real inner work that would make them desirable to women. And that's why I laughed earlier and was like, there's homoerotic tendencies in this shit. Because women don't like looksmaxxing content. It's just men in a circle jerk being like, "Oh yeah, dude, you look so you're literally what the fuck is that shit?" I know that there's like levels to this shit. And like if you're at the bottom, you're called like subhuman. I'd probably be subhuman on these subreddits. They have like numbers and shit attached to the things, but I fucking forgot, and I don't care to look it up, and I really don't want to like rot my brain with whatever the fuck is on the subreddits. But it's it's just that though. It's rebranded classical manhood, and then it's being sold to you as revolutionary and a new thing, right? And that's what makes it shiny and brand new and appealing. And the thing is that looksmaxxing is just bastardized women's desires seen through the lens of a man. Let that sink in. And the thing is that men kind of, when they are in the realm of trying to decipher women's desires, they tend to focus on things like that are vanity based with the illusion that it has to do with something of substance. And by that, I mean that men literally think that to be hot shit, all they gotta do is wear skirts sometimes and paint their nails. And That's gonna make them appealing. That's gonna make them desirable to women. The thing is that sometimes it fucking works. Lord knows, when I was really young, I fucking fell for it. And let me tell you, he was a piece of shit. He was literally just a regular ass dude with painted nails. And like, it's shit like that that really like pisses me off, because it's just like, get it together, girl. Get it together. Just because he paints his nails and he wears a skirt does not mean that he is an ally. Does not mean that he is a good man. I've met several men in my life who were terrible, terrible people, and guess what? They were alternative, and they wore skirts and fishnets and shit like that, and they did their makeup sometimes and all kinds of bullshit like that. And at the end of the day, what they were doing was looking at female desire through a male lens. And they just wanted to be these little perfect, popular little twink ass bitches or some shit. And they thought that's what would get them girls. And for a period of time, maybe it worked. But like, the thing is that once you interact with them once, you immediately, after you get maybe played like 12 times, you will realize, you will realize the real kicker, which is that they are performing a type of masculinity that they think is revolutionary. And in reality, it is just another example of men taking things that women like, repurposing it, and making it this like ugly ass fucking paper mache ass figurine of what they think women want. It's not who they are, it's what they think you want. They're selling you a fantasy, and you don't even fucking know it until after you buy into it. But, anyways, being attractive means nothing, right? If you don't have the balls to be a decent person. And this all ties into the debasement of women's desire and the endless feedback loop of men telling other men what women want. Men will see popular media amongst women, and they will watch it, analyze it, and then through their fucking male gaze, I'm going to use Twilight as an example. They will watch Twilight, and the first thing that comes to their mind when they're like, damn, all these girls love Edward and Jacob, I wonder what the secret sauce is. They'll sit there and they'll be like, right, it's because they're shirtless, and it's because they have abs, and it's because they got chiseled jaw, and because they got money. They'll sit there and those will be the reasons that they list off as to why they think women find Edward and Jacob attractive, right? And the thing is that they couldn't be any more wrong. Yes, okay, right. I'll give them like a crumb, a little crumb of a cookie, and be like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, women find those qualities attractive, surface level wise. And that's the thing, men don't ever look below the fucking surface because they don't fucking know how. Is that like, yes, on a cursory glance, that is why women find Edward and Jacob attractive, and that is what a lot of young women kind of tend to focus on. But if you really ask and you really dig deep into why women like Edward and Jacob from Twilight, it is because of the devotion that they exude and the tender moments when they display a care and attention towards Bella's desires, specifically her desires. That is what makes them attractive to women. That is what makes them heartthrobs. It's not only because they're shirtless and they have chiseled jaws and they have abs and money and whatever the fucking like inhuman strength. It's not just those reasons. Like, those are like, it's like if you looked at a cake and all you ate was the frosting, but not the actual delicious cake underneath. Like, you're missing the fucking plot. You're missing the point. The point here, over your fucking head. And that is not to say that men need to be completely selfless and put others' needs above their own to satisfy whatever they think being a man is, because that is just the standard definition of a man. Um, it's more so to highlight that being thoughtful and taking an interest in your partner's desires and being someone who pays attention and being somebody who takes the time to listen. And I mean like engaged listening, and take note of what this person that you want to like you is, what they like, and to participate in that. That is what makes you attractive. That is what makes you somebody that a woman or whoever you're pursuing would want to keep in their life longer, because it is not through just attention alone, it is through special attention. And you can't do that when you're talking to seven bitches at one time. No human is possibly capable of that. I genuinely don't think that you can give seven different people special attention in the way that I'm talking about. But um, like, that kind of thing can get you so much further than a like a six pack or a like crazy ass jawline ever could. And anyways, nonchalance in itself, in the way that it's depicted in the modern age, is just a fancy shield to vulnerability and rejection. Men, specifically in this case scenario, I know there are women out there trying to be nonchalant, but I'm talking to men right now, is just like they are so scared to be vulnerable. They are so scared of rejection. And that's why I mentioned that it starts in childhood, because they are taught from a young age that if you're vulnerable, or if you're faced with rejection, like it is a personal affront. Like you did something wrong. It is your fault. Like you are terrible. It's something is wrong with you. And like, I'm gonna be real. In the case of like abusers and people who are like pieces of shit, it is their fault and they deserve to be shunned. But in the case of like a regular breakup, right? Or like a regular interaction where you ask somebody out and they're like, "Oh no, thank you." Um, like that's not to say that you deserve to die, or you are terrible, or you are just this like awful human being and you're disgusting and nobody wants to look at you. But it's like it's just a natural part of life. And through participating in nonchalance, you kind of inadvertently like self-fulfill this thing that you are trying to avoid, which is not being loved and not being seen for who you are. When you perform nonchalance and you perform masculinity, which you think will cause you to get accepted in society or will give you acceptance in society, you are shooting yourself in the foot. You're not even giving yourself the chance to feel. How can you experience love, attraction, friendship, platonic love, right? If you are not feeling anything when you are participating in it. Like, to have a relationship of any kind, platonic or romantic, there needs to be stakes, and there needs to be emotional stakes for it to mean anything. And through nonchalance, which is just detachment plus or light, um, you're not giving yourself even the opportunity to be vulnerable, to put stakes in a relationship, because it's like, in doing something that prevents you from loss, you also prevent receiving anything. Like, yeah, you can take all you want from a person, but like you will never actually be in love. You'll never actually know what it's like to truly be in love. You'll know what it's like to be worshipped, maybe, or to be obsessed over, or to be coddled at best, but you'll never know what true love is. And I think that is so fucking sad and so pathetic. And honestly, as a society, I think everybody is terrified of rejection and vulnerability, and that people are literally just turning to like hyped up detachment as a way to protect themselves from feeling. And I just want to end this video off with a few questions that I think you should leave with. But like, what happened to yearning? Why is being somebody who cares and who puts themselves out there and who does the hard thing of opening up, why is that seen as cringy to some people? Why is that seen as a wrong way to live? You think You think being detached and acting like you have no stakes in anything and pretending you don't care and overall just being somebody who belittles the beauty of being a human with a heart, you think that's better? Like, really ask yourself that. And like, just why is that cool or attractive to some people? I know people who are like specifically attracted to these nonchalant types. And it's like, why do you find that attractive? Actually question that for yourself. Why do you find detachment attractive? Are you scared that somebody who yearns and cares and pays attention will truly see you and will truly see who you are, and you're scared of anybody knowing who that is? Ask yourself that. This is not an abstract observation. I'm trying to make the point that being nonchalant out of fear of rejection will strip you of the very thing that you are searching for most, which is human connection. And you will never get that by being nonchalant. Anyways, my name is Jolly. This is Dead Name. Thank you for watching or listening, and I hope you have a great day. Yeah.